Hey everybody, welcome to the Have You Ever Played podcast, the only podcast Nintendo hasn't sued yet. I'm Matt, aka Matt Fondude, and who are you?
I'm James, aka James04E.
And James, today I'm going to get right into it. We're a little late. We've had some scheduling issues, but
Yes.
I'm going to get right into talking about Palworld. That was kind of related to my little quip at the beginning of the episode
Oh
um,
boy.
about the litigious Nintendo lawyers. Um, But yeah, we would be remiss if we did not talk about Pal World. We're a little late to the party. Um and I don't think James, have you even played any of Pal World?
No, I have not. I have some friends who have gotten into it. Like it's starting to become the new Minecraft in some of my friend groups.
So I did my due diligence this time and I actually did play the trendy game. So I have six
Ooh.
and a half hours in it. I can
Ooh.
talk a little bit about it. I haven't played as much as I wanted to slash would have. I
Hmm.
was, kind of caught up with other stuff. But I
Yeah.
did play a good amount of it, and I think we should talk a little bit about it first, before we get
Hmm.
into our weeks. So, anyway, James, from your perspective, since you have not played the game, what is your like? What is your what is your stance slash like? What have you absorbed about Pal World? I guess.
Um. Yeah. I mean, it looks like to me like Pokemon meets Monster Hunter meets oh god, I'm
Breath
looking
of the
at
Wild.
I'm
It's
I'm
very
looking
Breath
at the
of the
Steam
Wild.
page. I'm looking at the Steam page, just the production line of like the animals making guns.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's like it's got some farming stuff going on. It's got some factories and automation.
Hmm.
We'll call it that.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
there's some labor. There's
This
some.
the description says letting pals do the work is key to the automation. Build a factory, place a pal in it, and they'll keep working as long as they're fed. Until they're dead, that is.
It is
Damn.
really funny that the marketing for this game was like, look how funny it's like Pokemon, but what if Pokemon were like like sad, which is really funny. I think it's
Yeah.
maybe part of the idea of like Pokemon in a real world setting, sort of.
Well, I think it's I
They
think
did
it's
a
perfect
lot.
for I think it's perfect for people that grew up with Pokemon because we're all edgy and nihilistic now.
I think they did a lot of like funny, haha, Pokemon upset. But honestly, when you play the game, there is a lot of that. But like, I think you don't have to play the game too much. You don't have to. You can kind of lean into how evil you want to be to the pals in Pal World.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's pretty interesting because the game is really popular. It was becoming like the number one played game on Steam for a while. It's still
Yeah.
probably really high up there in the charts. It,
Hmm.
it kind of goes to show you how people are like clamoring for a good Pokemon game. And what's funny is Palworld's more of like an arc survival type game rather than a
Yeah.
Pokemon game. It just has elements of Pokemon and kind of Legends Arceus kind of gameplay.
Hmm.
Um, Yet people are just like, no, we're all in. And honestly, for the price point, it is it is currently $30 and it's genuinely a pretty fun time and you could play it with friends. Like I think
Hmm.
the $30 price point, if it was $60, it would be like tough. But for $30, you can get a good amount of enjoyment out of this game. Um I don't think it's the best thing ever like some people are, I think that's died down. I think
Yeah.
the perception that it's the best game of all time has now that it's been out for a couple days, people are like
Yeah.
kind of over it already.
Hmm.
But it's fun. Yeah, it's worth
Yeah.
checking out at some point. I don't know if they'll ever update it or anything.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Is it meant to be live service?
Well, their previous game, this company's previous game, Crafttopia or Craft World, Crafttopia. They so wait, yeah, they have a game called Crafttopia, which is literally the same game except doesn't have the Pokemon element. If you look up
Hmm.
Crafttopia, it's way more Breath of the Wild leaning, and
Yeah.
I'm
Here it is.
assuming that game is
I
probably not
see.
going to get any more updates anymore. Um,
Mayhaps.
because now they're doing Pal World, and Pal World's a success.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure we'll get a couple updates with the game, but I don't know. They have a
Hmm.
they have like an update like roadmap on what they want to do in the next update. So like
Ooh, I
there's it's
see.
promising. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good game. It's just it is interesting. People have been talking about the plagiarism. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, I've seen some of that. Like then there
Mhm,
was like the whole AI art drama because
mhm,
apparently the I think it was the CEO of the studio was like previously supporting AI art, and people theorized that they used it for the game, but apparently there was like proof that they didn't.
mhm. Well, what's funny about that is like do people mean they used AI art to like create concept art and then they still made the 3D models? I don't think there's I mean there might be tools, but there's definitely not powerful enough tools to just like be like make a Pokemon and then type it into a prompt and then get a 3D model. Like what part of that are they talking about? I feel like it's a weird criticism when there is a very valid criticism to make about how closely some of the Pokemon designs resemble the Palworld characters, and also how
Hmm.
the logo for Palworld is very just it's just like the Breath of the Wild font,
Yeah,
basically.
I think that the game is inherently inseparable from Pokemon. Like I don't think they can sit down and deny that they're like inspired by Pokemon, right? So
I
like
don't
I
even
think
think it's inspired at this. I think it is they're trying to get as close to all of these really popular things as possible without getting sued.
yeah,
Um,
maybe
it
they
feels a
have.
little cynically no, it feels a little like creatively bankrupt in a way. It is very
Mhm.
much like it doesn't feel like a passionate like oh we like Pokemon. It feels like oh this will sell well, but the game feels like the game feels good. I think that's the thing that is why
Yeah.
people are still playing it. It actually does feel pretty fun to play.
Hmm.
And despite the fact that they took a bunch of popular things and threw it in a blender, like the actual product is pretty good. I think if it was just like a meme bad game, no one would care. It's the fact that
Yeah.
it's actually fun is what's keeping people like
Ye
around.
yeah, I remember I saw, like, this Twitter exchange where people were talking about, like, you can say Palworld is, like, copying Pokemon all you want, but they would never make a Pokemon game like this.
Exactly.
And it was pretty funny because I was like, "Damn, they really wouldn't." Like, they just kinda don't get that creative with the Pokemon games. Like, there's some cool ones, but,
Well, the thing
they're
is, they
they're not
don't
doing anything
have
that
to. People
crazy.
are just gonna keep buying them, and that's
Yeah.
the problem. Like the closest game would be the Legends Arceus game, and people liked that, but it was just so flawed and had so many bugs and issues, and they just like, all right, moving on to the next game. Um, I don't think this will ever put any fire under, you know, the team who makes Pokemon to make better Pokemon games. And I'm sure the team who makes Pokemon games don't want to make bad games. I'm sure there's just pressure to pump out as many games as possible. Because
Yeah.
why would they improve when people are going to buy the double pack every time anyway? Um, we're at a point where like pretty much every Pokemon release for the maybe past 4 releases have just been pretty mediocre to bad, and maybe we'll get a good one eventually again. It is just bizarre that
Mhm.
they don't even like try, you know. Um, well, I wouldn't. I'm not gonna blame anyone who works on those games because I'm sure there's like internal annoying like I don't think anyone ever sets out to work on a game to be bad. Like no one wants to make a bad game, you know.
Yeah.
It's probably just a money thing, you know.
Alright. That is a good segue. Speaking of bad games, Suicide Squad. Apparently it's not very good. So from what I have heard and a little bit of what I've seen, so I'm probably not going to buy the game. I'm going to
Hmm.
do the same thing I did with Spider-Man 2, just find like one of the good walkthroughs. It's like it's not like a game movie, so it's not all the cutscenes, but instead it just like it includes all the important gameplay stuff and then like has the cutscenes. I'm going to find one of those in like a few days, but from what I've heard, uh people are very upset about the game. It's kind of the same. Some of it is the same as what people were talking about before when they first revealed the gameplay. Like it's like the actual gameplay that's there, like the shooting stuff, isn't fantastic, especially when it's the same studio that made the Batman Arkham games, right? Like you
Hmm.
would expect like combat with lots of depth, ideally a little more melee combat as well. And yeah, I think lots of people have problems with the story. No spoilers, but people just don't think they treated the characters very well, especially Batman. It's actually not Kevin Conroy's last performance. That's a bit of a not a misconception. It's kind of misinformation. He does have a couple more, I believe, with like the new Batman animated series. He was also in that, and then I don't remember what the other one was, but he has one more down the line. But yeah, people were like upset that this might potentially be his last performance, and they just didn't like what they did with the character. They also just some people just didn't like the whole. They don't like that you kill the Justice League when it's like I understand what you mean, but the game is called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I don't know what you expected to do.
Yeah, and
Uh
that's been done. Like that storyline has been done a couple times in different ways, so it's not like
yeah.
crazy new territory. Maybe people are just upset that's like they don't like the characters in the Suicide Squad, and they're like, but they're
Yeah.
killing these other cooler characters. Like I saw a Reddit post that was like my idea to fix the game. What if instead rock, because they're like it's like is it Rocksteady? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
it's
Rocksteady
Rocksteady.
Studios. Why did they make this game? Why couldn't they make a game where it's like you're evil Batman and you kill like or no like
Yeah.
you're evil Batman and you get to kill everyone as evil Batman. That
Yeah.
would be cool. It's just like
So
why don't they just make the game they made again?
yeah. So my general take on it is I don't think the concept was that strong, actually.
Hmm.
I think the idea of I think the idea of playing as the Suicide Squad and killing the Justice League. I mean, first of all, just scale wise, right? Like Harley Quinn is not fighting Superman in like a fair fight. Let's be honest with ourselves. Um, but second of all, I also think that we're very starved for good superhero games, right? Especially like when you look at like Superman, like it is astounding how there hasn't been a good Superman game in this long. And everybody thought that Rocksteady's next big thing was going to be. They thought it was either going to be Batman Beyond or a Superman game. Batman Beyond probably isn't happening with the way that Suicide Squad went, and Superman, at least in the universe, probably isn't happening as well. But also, like, they spent a lot of time on this game, so people are just a little bit upset about that. I kind of understand that, but I don't. I also don't necessarily think it's the game's fault itself. I just think that the concept wasn't fantastic.
I just realized as you said that I don't think there has ever been a good Superman game, and there's not that many of them in general. Because I just looked
Yeah,
it up, and I was thinking like, oh yeah, like Superman 64, notable bad game. But I'm looking, and there really isn't actually that many. There's a lot of like Game Boy Advance to Game Boy kind of titles, but
yeah,
man, no one's ever tried to make a Superman game. That is interesting.
yeah. I also think some people have wanted like a good Flash game for a while, but that's I'm gonna be honest, that's never happening. Think about how
That's
like
hard
how are
gameplay.
you gonna like walk around places? Like, could you imagine?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like how the Sonic games, it feels impossible for them to ever make a good 3D Sonic game because when Sonic is at its best, it's like you're going really fast. You're going fast at a point where the amount of assets they need to develop to keep like you entertained for like 5 minutes versus a game where you're not running around and doing crazy stuff. It just seems like not worth it. That's why all those games have
Yeah,
like pointless segments that are just like platforming now. It's because they can't just have. I mean, they could maybe make like a 4 hour game that is just 4 hours of good stuff instead of like additional like 5 hours of filler. But
yeah. I think also part of the problem is that so since the Arkham games and sort of the Spider-Man games are like the blueprint, people are expecting like, oh, we got a city to explore and stuff, and it's like you can't explore a city as Flash. Let's be real.
mhm.
Um,
Well, what's mhm.
but yeah, it's lots of weird concepts. I also think part of the problem is that uh, some people don't like the lore implications. Like, there's some weird timeline stuff going on with how long the Justice League has existed, and like it collides with the Arkham games and stuff like that. And it's like meant to be implied that these characters just weren't around at the time, and it's weird. But and then like on top of that, I also think that having you play as Batman for 4 games and then having it as a boss is never going to work, right? Because like
Mm.
the player is just literally too strong for it to ever be possible. Like any situation you put Batman into, the player is going to sit there and be like, "Well, I could just get out of this in the Arkham games. I've been through this before."
Well, what's also wild is that don't Rocksteady games have like a reputation for having horrible boss fights like in all of their games basically?
Um, Not horrible. So like they have some good ones, like the Mister Freeze one and stuff. I guess a better way to put it is they're a little more gimmicky. and
Mhm.
they rely a lot more on the like actual narrative than the gameplay of the boss fight itself. I actually remember the Arkham Origins had some decent boss fights, but the thing with that is that it wasn't a Rocksteady game. I think it was WB Montreal. And I also kind of another thing that's kind of a little not like funny but odd is so everybody knows the Arkham games, especially Arkham Knight, had like phenomenal graphics. Like if
Mhm.
you look at like Arkham Knight, like the rain and like stuff on like the characters and things like that, it literally looks like it just came out like now, like this
Well,
year.
depending on which version you're playing, because they also
Yeah.
remastered those games and completely changed like all of the lighting. And in
Hmm.
some parts, and some people would say they made the game look worse, which is weird because they lit up areas that were supposed to be dark, which is a common remaster problem where
Yeah.
people will just throw in light sources in an area that's intentionally dark. Um,
Yeah.
the Dark
But yeah,
Souls has a little bit of that issue, the
yeah.
remaster.
But yeah,
Anyway,
generally very good graphics, very good lighting. People were kind of underwhelmed with Suicide Squad. I think the in that department. I think the main thing that I noticed at least is that characters like they don't the actual models aren't affected by the environment at all. Like they have so you know how in the Arkham games you have those little animations where you die and like the villain talks to you. They
uh,
have something a
mhm.
little similar with the Justice League members, but they kind of like beat you up, and then you look at the character model, and it doesn't look like they just got beat up. They look normal.
Hmm.
I think that was one thing that lots of people were like pointing out.
What's kind of funny is when you said graphics, I actually looked at this and I thought the graphics looked really nice on the facial animations. Then
Hmm.
again, I'm seeing a screenshot. I'm not watching it in motion, and
Yeah.
also it seems weird that Harley Quinn is like a human. Like they clearly spent more time on that face and like model, and then you look at who is like. I don't really know the Suicide Squad, but
Well,
like the other
which
two
one? The gun
humans,
guy or the Australian?
it's not Boomer. Is Boomerang Man is the Australian man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, both of them
Okay.
are a little
Then it's
uncanny.
yeah. Then you're thinking of Deadshot. I think.
Deadshot looks like a NPC character in a video game, and
Yeah.
like
Don't
Harley
disagree.
Quinn looks like a 4K model.
Well, yeah. It's because we're in the Harley Quinn Renaissance. You know
Hmm.
they had to do that.
It is a little bizarre. It's a little
Hmm.
jarring. The model quality in this one screenshot is a little jarring.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't hold that against the game. I think people have unrealistic standards for certain graphics and how like and then also those people the same way will be like I want our games to look like super 8K like super graphics, but why are games too hard to run on computers? Why do we need like max specs or whatever? It's you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, so like yeah, I do kind of agree with some of the graphics complaints. Not all of them. Obviously, some people are just being unreasonable. One thing that did kind of irk me out. I don't think Brainiac's design looks that great. It looks kind of like Squidward. It's a little weird. And I think the some of the other designs, like I feel like the Superman and Flash design look a little not flat, but like just kind of basic. I guess. Like they didn't take any risks with it, which is like of course I don't want the over designed MCU costume stereotype, right? But like if you look back at the Arkham games, they had some really cool character designs in those games.
Yeah, they didn't really take. I feel like I don't see this game as an Arkham game. I feel like this is DC's answer to the Marvel what's it called? Guardians of the Galaxy game.
I think yeah, it's a combination of that and like the Avengers game, but I think the issue like they could have avoided so many issues if they didn't just explicitly say, "Hey, this takes place in the Arkham universe."
Yeah,
I also think part of the problem with that is so spoilers for Arkham Knight. The game is 9 years old. Deal with it.
mhm.
Supposedly Batman dies at the end, but like it's kind of hinted that he's not dead and he's using like fear toxin, and they remove all the ambiguity from that with this game.
So he's alive, and
Yeah,
then
he's
but they can't. But
alive,
he's alive, so they can kill him because that's what the
and
title is.
yeah, and also what's also weird is Harley Quinn refers to him by his real name a lot, so it's implied the whole secret identity thing didn't get taken back, but he's like he's out in the public, so I don't really understand. Maybe it's explained in the story. I don't know, but it seems kind of odd.
Hmm.
And
Is
yeah,
this
I
game
think
out? It says it's coming out tomorrow. Is that just the PC release?
so a lot of people got early access, like a lot of people. I think it was like a pre-order thing or something like
Hmm.
that. Can't remember exactly. Speaking of early access, it was actually kind of funny. IGN, they got like a demo copy or something, like not a review copy, but apparently like a demo version that they just gave to a bunch of people. And IGN said, "Hey, we actually don't. We think this is kind of shit." And so Rocksteady just didn't give them review copies.
That is shocking if IGN says your game is not very good. It's at least a 7.5
Uh, but
minimum.
yeah, so IGN's been posting like every bad thing that happens about Suicide Squad on like all their socials. It's really funny, actually. Even if like the stuff is just blatant misinformation, they'll just post it.
It is also wild that you say that, like, all this controversy about the game. It's not out yet, but I literally saw like a YouTube short, I think like a couple days ago, of the game of gameplay, and it was just kind of like King Shark. You have like a minigun. It's kind of boring, but it's like passable. And I was like, oh okay. And I read it. I wrote that off for the rest of my life until this conversation. And I'm like, wow, I already put this game off, and it's not even out yet. I'm just, who
Yeah,
cares?
I guess like my thing is, the gameplay doesn't look very exciting. Like
Hmm.
it's third person shooter, basic traversal crit spot game, which it's a little uninteresting compared to the Arkham games, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, those games got a little old. They were pretty innovative at the time, but then it was probably a criticism against them was they kept making very similar games, and they would add something like you can now drive the car, and it's like mechanics that people don't really care about.
Yeah,
Um,
so I think how it went with those games is, so everybody liked Arkham Asylum, everybody really
mhm.
liked Arkham City, then Arkham Origins came out, and I think not only was like the writing not as great and the graphics were kind of different, they looked a little more like kind of Play-Doh-y, but I also think that the combat was just getting not getting old, but I guess just the changes that they made people didn't feel were sufficient, and like the major changes they made people didn't like. And then Arkham Knight came out and everybody's like, "Oh, we're back to like a good old Rocksteady combat." And then they're like, "Wait, I don't like these car sequences." But I think even to this day, I think people still do like challenges and stuff in the Arkham games. Like I still think they
Mhm.
like doing those runs, and I especially like that in Arkham Knight you got to play as like a bunch of different characters for the challenges.
Well, outside of Batman world, maybe we can get into our weeks a little bit, unless you have any other like breaking news you want to discuss.
I mean, just one thing. I just remember that in Arkham Origins, there was a multiplayer mode, and it was Batman and Robin versus a bunch of like thugs and stuff like that, and it was really weird.
You know what's really sad? Just like multiplayer modes like that, like weird niche multiplayer modes. And I feel like this is like the PS3 like era of time where like Assassin's Creed had a really weird multiplayer mode and like Metal Gear Online, like these niche multiplayer modes that are just dead. Like
Okay,
and
so my thing is the Assassin's Creed one was actually good.
it was
I
good.
think that's like the main. So that's something we do need to mention. Most of these were shit.
It's worth try like but it's like weird like when am I gonna play Fat Princess again? In like the PS3 like download game, like a lot of
Yeah,
these multiplayer experiences that are just completely lost. Even if they were on PC though, I mean, no one would be playing them. But if it's
yeah,
on PC, it gives you the option to have people doing events where they'll all get on a game. And there's a lot of fan projects trying to get these things back, but it's just like I don't know. It kind of sucks that console generation really is just rough in terms of like lost content.
yeah, definitely.
That is just nowhere else to be found. Like the
Mhm.
weird thing of Fable 1 and 3 being on Steam, although in weird ways, and then 2 just never existing. It's just bizarre. Just bizarre. Anyway,
Wazzer.
outside of Palworld, I think I dropped Maple Story basically. I played a lot of that just for like it's just every news story is getting even worse and worse, and I was just doing that as like a fun side thing. And I'm like, man, they're really every news story is just the game is like horribly getting worse. Um,
Hmm.
and then I played Overwatch 2 the other day. I played like one match of that game, and I was playing tank, and I'm like, I felt like I was doing well, and it felt like nothing I did mattered, and I was just like, wow. I guess I'll wait till the next battle pass because I completed the battle pass except for like the titles or whatever. So I'm like, man, without the incentive of getting a cool skin, even though this season all the skins were bad, I'm like, man, I don't really want to play this game. Like, what's the point of
Yeah.
me playing this game if I'm just gonna have like a match that kind of sucks? So I haven't really touched that in a bit. Like all my like daily games kind of fell off.
Yeah.
Um, I've been slowly playing Hogwarts Legacy. It's kind of hard to boot up that game and like play it because it's fun, but it is like it feels I don't know. It doesn't feel that crazy. It feels like oh okay, this is a game. It feels like every Far Cry game or any of those kind of games where it's like yeah, this is a video game. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. I'm kind of having a similar experience with Mass Effect 1, where it's like, I know once it gets to like Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, like it gets like a lot more unique, but I'm just kind of like, every time I'm doing nothing and I want to play a single player game, I'm just kind of like, yeah. I just always do something else usually.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a rut in terms of gaming right now.
Hmm.
I'm having that vibe where every game I boot up, I'm like, I'm spending 30 minutes like looking at my Steam library, then I boot a game up, and then I'm like, I close it, and I'm like, eh.
Hmm.
So what I've been doing instead is I started watching One Piece again. Um,
Ooh.
and I'm almost on episode 900. So
Ooh.
I'm like, what's funny is like I'm like I'm almost caught up, but I think let me see what episode they're on right now. Uh, I'm gonna probably get spoiled horribly. Okay, I think they're at least on episode
I think they're on like 1,000.
1106. At least.
Really?
Probably more. Actually, well, I just typed in and there was a thing that said spoiler. Actually, here, type in just list. Give me the current episode list
Yeah.
like number
Let me go like
because I
One
don't want
Piece
to get
episode. Okay. They have
spoiled.
1,092 episodes.
1092. Okay. So I'm actually not that far behind and what's wild to me is I think the dub caught up to where I am in the sub, which is wild because I'm not watching the dub. I used to watch the dub and then I ran out of dub and then I started
I
watching the
ran
sub.
out of dub.
I ran out of dub and started watching the sub, and I'm usually watching the sub kind of guy. But for One Piece, it was nostalgia. I think you can watch your like nostalgia shonen anime. Like people watch Dragon Ball dubbed and stuff. Like I think you can watch those and have a good time, either dubbed or subbed.
Yeah.
Um, for the most part. I have
Hmm.
weird dubbing things. We've talked about this where like certain things like Cyberpunk I watched in English, even though it was a Japanese, it was Trigger who did the animation, but it
Hmm.
feels like you want to watch it in English. Same thing with Persona, those games, and if you watch the anime, I want to watch it with the voice actors from the game.
Hmm.
What's weird is the Yakuza games are in Japanese, and then the newer ones have a dub, and I've heard the dub is really good, but if I play all the games in Japanese, then I get to that, it's like well, maybe I should experience the dub because I heard it's really good and it's, in English. But it's Yakuza. It's very Japanese. So I don't know what to do when I get to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, I'm watching that. It hooks you, there is some dumb stuff about any shonen kind of anime. Um but the cool stuff every couple episodes there's a little cool thing happens. You're like, "You know what? This is cool. I like this."
Yeah.
Um So that's what I've been doing a little bit. But
Hmm.
I rewatched all of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yes, I have, but not since I was a kid though.
Yeah, it
Never like
holds up.
rewatched
It's
it.
a fantastic show.
Hmm.
The movie does not hold up. The movie is still bad, still atrociously bad. I've been
Yeah, and
rewatching
there's
that just
a
for
live
fun.
action series coming out soon, which I hear is
There is.
so I initially heard it was supposed to be okay, but then like everything I've heard of since has been slightly concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Like the original creator of Avatar like left because of creative differences or something, and then like
That's good.
then I think they were saying they were cutting like the sexist parts of Sokka's character out, which is it's really important for his character arc, which is what I think is kind of weird.
Well, as someone who literally has just rewatched the show, that arc is like 3 episodes long. It's like the first
Hmm.
episode, he's like, "You're a girl, Katara. You can't do things," and Katara's like, "Sokka, you're literally an idiot." And then they play like a slide whistle, like, "Doo!" Like it's clearly Sokka is supposed to be in the wrong, and
Hmm.
then he gets his ass beat. on Kyoshi Island. And then he's like, "I'm good now." I mean, he has a
I'm
couple
good
more
now.
moments. He has a couple more moments where he's like a little bit iffy, but it really is just like playground. Like girls are can't be warriors, and then he in the same episode is like learns from it. So
Hmm.
I think that's sensationalizing headlines a bit. I don't think it honestly. If they cut that, I don't think we're really losing anything because it's really
Hmm.
not that big of an arc. To be honest, it's literally like 3 episodes.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just not a cool headline to come out of it though, and I'm sure it will be. It'll be like The Witcher season 1. It'll probably be cool. People will like it. Then they'll like do some nonsense and like
Do
ruin. Like,
some
it'll be
nonsense.
passable season 1, and then it'll be like season 2 will change a bunch of stuff, and no one will watch it, and it's whatever. Or
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe it'll be massive. I just hope it renews interest in making an animated Avatar show.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure. Didn't they already say that they're making more animated Avatar shows?
I've heard
Like they're doing like
rumors
a
about
whole like
that.
Avatar animated universe or something.
Well, I would hope because there's a bunch of comics that they could adapt, like actual
Yeah.
canon important comics they could adapt
Yeah,
into
like I think they said it was supposed to
animation.
start like next year when they were gonna really like start coming out or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably contingent on Avatar doing well. I think it will do
Hmm.
well, even if it's bad.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of hype around it.
Hmm.
I'm gonna watch it probably. I am going to watch it, just to see. I'll give it a season. I mean, if it's like not enjoyable, then I probably won't watch it.
Yeah.
I don't particularly think any live action adaptation from like an animated show is necessary. Slash, I think it's just a bad move. People were really excited about the One Piece live action show, which I have not seen. It's
I heard
just
that one
like,
was okay.
yeah, but what's bizarre about that is like, what is the future? Is that just like a novelty of like the original arc? Like, what is the future of that? Because there's 1,000 plus episodes. They're
Well,
never gonna
I think that they
do that.
adapted like 100 chapters or something in the first season, from what I
Mhm.
heard. So I think what they're going to be doing is probably like some like 100 chapters a season thing, something
Well,
like
if
that.
they had, I'm sure they've had all the cast members who are like in the main original crew of One Piece. I don't know if they had like Chopper or whatever. I don't know if they got that far, but I mean
Let me
Chopper's actually in a
check.
weird spot in that show. But I'm sure they had like Sanji, they had Nami, obviously, Zoro. They, I'm assuming they might have gotten to Chopper and Usopp and stuff. I'm
Uh,
sure they got like
so
most of the main people, right?
I'm gonna take a wild guess, given all of the fake screenshots I'm seeing, that Chopper is not in the live action yet.
Okay, not yet. Fair enough. So that's not that far in the show. There's a
Mhm.
lot that happens. I think it was probably just like a novelty thing. Like maybe they'll do another season, but like there's no way.
Well, no, like they already announced they're doing multiple seasons. I'm
I
pretty
know,
sure.
but there's just no. I mean, although One Piece does print money in Japan,
Yeah,
um, and it does have infinity bucks. But like,
yeah. I mean,
are they actually gonna do that? Because that would be insane.
I don't know. I feel like they made a pretty big deal of it. Like the Luffy actor, he like went to Japan, met the voice actress for Luffy, and she like put the hat on his head and all that stuff. Like
Hmm. He
they
met
were
the
like
grandma.
hamming it up. Yeah, and he
Yeah,
had like an interview with Oda himself, and Oda was saying like, "Yeah, you're exactly what I thought Luffy would be like," or something like that. Like they made a pretty big deal out of it, from what I remember.
Yeah, but can they? But that's the thing. Like, would they? Why would they even bother doing that many episodes? Unless it's like a huge smash hit. Like I could see,
I
but
mean,
you know
I
what I
think it
mean.
was
It's
one of the
just so
most.
much.
It was. I think it was pretty successful, if I remember correctly. It was
But can
like,
it hold success for like 5 seasons? And that's like 5 seasons isn't even like a dent in like the storyline. I guess it's a good tool to get
and
people to
actually,
get into the
let
anime,
me
to get
check.
into the manga, to get into the merchandise.
Let me
You
see
know,
how many chapters it covered exactly.
if it didn't get up the chopper, I mean, that's not that. Maybe that's like 100 eps or something. I don't remember when.
Okay,
Let
so
me
it
look at
covered
One Piece.
95 chapters.
Okay,
So that's a little under a tenth of the story.
I'm looking at the episode list right now for One Piece. Oh, also, it's in seasons. Oh, yeah. Don't do One Piece in seasons. That's gonna be impossible for me to figure out what eps
I
are
mean,
on.
yeah, they're gonna have to do it. They
No, no,
can't
no.
not
Sorry, not
just.
the live action. I'm saying like don't list it in seasons.
Oh,
They
I
list
see
it
what
in
you mean.
arcs for a reason because an
Yeah,
arc can be like 200, 100 episodes, whatever. All right, so I'm looking right now.
yeah. So the reason
So
why they do
East Blue.
seasons, it's a little. I mean, I guess it's not necessarily outdated nowadays, but because most anime are just in seasons now. But back then, I think it was for Blu-rays.
True,
So
but
like
I
you
mean
would
that's
get like
just
a
like more
season
of
of
a.
like Bleach or
Hmm.
something, and it'd be like 20 episodes for the Blu-ray.
When do they go get Chopper? Oh, Winter Isle. Okay, so they get to the minor spoilers for One Piece. By the way, like early One Piece. That's not even that many episodes in. Uh, so they pass the Grand Line. So they're in the Grand Line at that point to get, and then Chopper is like, there's a whole arc of Chopper. He's like on the Winter Island thing. Um, and then I think post, honestly, oh my god, then they have like the, oh god, they have so many arcs. Post Chopper joining the crew. That's, I feel like Chopper's like the last like the last like would this be, you don't watch One Piece at all, right? You don't really follow One Piece.
I know of it. I have people spoiling me like
Well, you
every
have
week.
Chopper. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah.
like I
I
don't
know
think you
about
know
it
people
generally.
I don't think you know people post that, right? Like
I
I
mean,
feel like
I know
the
like I don't know.
be
People were talking about
careful
like
what you say too, because you might say something
okay,
that I'm
I'm
like,
just
you're
gonna
like,
say
oh, I know
name.
this
I'm just gonna say
character.
names. People were talking
Even if
about
you
like
say
Jinbei and stuff like that.
okay, that I mean that's like,
Like, I've heard about that.
well, first of all, big spoilers for people. That's like that was just announced. I just got to that. I'm on episode. I'm around in like the 800s. So yeah, that would be a very recent addition to their
Hmm.
team. Yes. Um. So I'm talking like Frankie and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know about
Um.
them.
Anyway.
I have a friend who's a very big Frankie fan.
Anyway. We've digressed
Yes,
very far away
much digression.
from video games sometimes podcast. Uh, I don't even remember how did we get here. From how did we talk about?
I don't know.
Oh, I
You
guess
started
just
talking about how you
weeks.
caught up on One Piece, or
Oh yeah,
not
because I
caught up, but you
wasn't
started
playing any
watching One
video
Piece
games
again.
basically. I,
Yeah.
I've been playing G-Force, the video game, the Disney guinea pig movie video game.
Oh, that one.
It's on Steam. It's okay. It was a bit, but it's actually not. It's just a little generic. It's not that bad. It's like a 9-hour game.
Hmm.
It has weird. It has almost Souls-like combat. You have lock on and you can dodge
Almost
roll.
Souls like.
It has Souls-like kind of combat, and then you have
Oh
like,
my
and but
god.
there, it's almost like Remnant too. It's actually, it has Remnant combat. It
Remnant
is a
2 like.
Remnant. It is
It's
a
a Remnant
Remnant
like.
like. You have a gun with multiple, and you have multiple different guns, and you can aim and shoot your gun, or you press a button to do melee attacks. You can dodge roll and stuff. It is actually kind of like Remnant a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, there is more enemy designs and like unique enemy AI in that game than a lot of games that I've played. I keep encountering like new enemies that have different mechanics. I swear there has to be like at least 30 different variants of enemies in that game. It is kind of insane.
Hmm.
And that also makes me a little sad because there's a lot of like these modern titles that have like three enemies in them. You know, like three enemy types repeated over and over again. And
Hmm.
it's kind of wild that GeForce was out here with their crazy AI stuff, like AI in the terms of bots in the game, like video game AI, not buzzword AI. I guess they weren't.
Hmm.
This was not a personalized copy of GeForce. Um, yeah. All right. I think I'm done talking about week. James, what have you been up to?
All right. Yeah. So not too much new from my week. Played Apex. The Final Fantasy event ended. It was so apparently people were getting really sick of it by the end because how Apex did the event is that the event was in regular like trios matchmaking instead of a separate mode. So it's like you'd hop into trios, just like play normal trios, but then somebody would run at you with a sword, and it's like, damn, I'm getting chopped. But yeah, I did give in to the FOMO, and I bought the Buster Sword cosmetic.
Wait. Wasn't that something you had to like gamble for? I thought that was something
Um,
you couldn't just buy.
so how it worked is there are 36 items in the event, right? Like between like skins, stickers, and all that stuff, and you have to buy the event packs to roll for one of the items. and in each event pack you have a sub 1% chance to get the sword
Yeah, and there was like a
until
pity
you get
system, right?
to your last one where you're guaranteed to get the sword.
So you pitied out.
Yeah,
I
pretty
don't even
much.
want to know. I don't even want to ask you how much you had to
Oh,
spend on your pity
I
system.
only ended up spending like $100. It wasn't actually too bad because
Hmm.
I had some Steam gift cards, and I was like, well, I bought all my Christmas games. I'm probably not going to buy much until like next Christmas, so like,
Hmm.
might as well. Saying what
Hmm.
if I don't spend it on this, I'm going to spend it on some like incrementing like Dota cosmetics or something. So like,
Mm.
I
Spoken like a true gambler.
got to get it out of the way. But yeah, it's cool. It takes up a lot of the like right side of your screen
Hmm.
when you're just
As it
walking. Like,
should.
yeah, when you're just walking. When you're sprinting, it's kind of fine, I think. Um, but it's a melee item you can put on any character. So whenever I don't have an heirloom for a character, I'll just equip it because
So
I need my fancy spinning thing.
weirdly enough, that will probably have value. Like it'll like I don't.
Yeah,
You can't sell items in Apex, right? You can't.
no, you can't.
You cannot sell or trade. So if they ever add that, then that would actually probably have value. But
Yeah,
you can
so
sell. People sell accounts too, but I don't think you would ever do
yeah,
that.
so my justification for it was I was
Hmm.
like, I liked Final Fantasy VII a bit when I was a kid. I played Crisis Core.
A bit.
Yeah,
It's not even the
and
actual game too. Yep.
well, no,
Keep going. You
I also played some Final Fantasy VII, but Crisis Core is like the one I actually like finished. But
hmm.
um, and I was like, so I'll never be able to buy this again because it's like it's an event specific item. You can't buy it after the event is over at all,
Hmm.
unlike all the other heirlooms. So I was like, I'll never be able to get it again. It's gonna put me down like $100, but in exchange, I will literally have an heirloom item for every single character, so I won't have to like worry about having to run around with my ugly fists out ever again. It's
I
like,
do feel like, especially because like that does make sense. You could use it on everyone, and I mean, if you like it, it's worth it.
yeah.
But how would now this is gonna put you into an interesting question state. Now, Overwatch did this recently, and some other games do this. How would you feel if, like, 5 years from now, they're like, "All right, we're bringing it back. You can get it now for this new event," because
I
they
don't think
just
I would
did
care.
that
I
with
don't
the
think I would care
Kerrigan
too much
skin.
if it was a while.
Some
Especially
people are like, it
since
devalues it.
yeah. So well, there's two parts to it for me. The first part is I also got all the other items for the event.
Hmm.
So like, it's not like I just put $100 exclusively into the sword. Like I got some cool stickers and stuff for my heels, and I got a cool skin for a few characters. Um, or cool skins for a few characters. But yeah, I mean, even if they were to bring it back, it'd probably be. I mean, given all the gift cards I had and like the discounts and the extra crafting metals I had and all that stuff, the total cost is supposed to be like $360. So
Hmm.
there,
So you got a
uh,
good deal.
yeah. So I think it is highly unlikely that they sell it for like $100 or less.
I
So if you,
think,
so yeah,
well, it kind of brings up an interesting question about certain games where I've now seen this in using Overwatch as an example, but time gated content in which it's like it's starting to creep back because it is wild that developers would like create a model or like put a lot of effort into something that you could only get one time like 5 years ago, and then it's never been like, and now people who play the game, people will join the game and they'll never be able to get this item, and they're like, well, you should have played 5 years ago to get this. So they're
yeah,
starting to slowly put stuff back into the game in different ways, and that is making people a little bit upset because they're like, it devalues my rare thing.
yeah. And
Um,
I have a couple things to say about it. I mean, I think first of all, the people who say like scarcity equals value and stuff like that. They're not incorrect, and I understand that perspective. I think a crossover event like the Final Fantasy one is one of the few cases where I like really understand like, well, okay, you're legitimately like you're breaking the theme of the game technically. It's like if people could always buy it, I think it'd be a little bit different. Because it's like basically for 3 4 weeks, it was like everybody's like, yeah, I'm like it's Apex, but Final Fantasy, and so it's
mhm.
like the sword is like one of the few like remnants of it that'll be in the game for people who bought it. Um, but I also do know that Respawn. I think this was like maybe 2 years ago. They changed their terms of service where now items are allowed to come back unless they're explicitly stated not to. So it's like even in battle passes and stuff like that, the items could come back later. I think it's funny because I think there was actually a loophole in the terms of service before where they could bring it back as a recolor. So like it could be
They
the
would do that a lot too
yeah
in other games.
yeah. So it could be like it could be the exact same skin, just different colors.
And what's funny about that is I feel like unless they have to make the recolor worse than the original, and I feel like that's because it's to get around. It's so they can reuse a model they spent money on, and they can get drain some more wallets, right? But I also feel like it's to get around people being like, well, I have the original one, so you're still like a peasant who has the new one. So you need to have the people, the whales and the people who originally got stuff, they still need to have some sort of superiority,
Hmm.
because it's like, well, okay, you don't have the real one, like, you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
they just brought the real one back, like I've seen that Reddit posts and stuff about people, they brought like a Moira skin that's like honestly looked awful back, and that used to be like a Twitch Prime drop or something. They just, or like it
Hmm.
used to be a paid skin, and now it's free on Prime, and people are complaining. It's like, well, I paid for this. Why don't I get it for free? It's like, well, it's 5 years later, and the skin also looks bad, and so
Yeah, I think
it's
Apex has
bizarre.
had some cases where like the recolors actually looked better, which is really funny.
Hmm.
But actually speaking of bringing back old skins, so there was a I don't even know whether to call it a leak or not because Apex is doing this huge like thing where uh they're doing all these interviews with Game Informer for the next Apex season because it comes out on like February 13th, I think.
Hmm.
And so Game Informer generally only talks about new games. They don't talk about existing ones as often. It's like this is like a big thing for them, I guess. And so they released a trailer for their for like their coverage of the next Apex season. And there were a bunch of just there were a bunch of things that were already leaked, but it just kind of confirmed them. Like they're changing how shields work in the game now, where it's you used to be able to just loot them off the ground and stuff like that, and then you could level them up by doing damage. But now how it's going to work apparently is you get like XP from doing things around the map, like damage, rezzing your teammates, like surviving zone closes, stuff like that, and that levels up your armor, and you can't loot them off the ground. And so it was really funny because it got leaked like the day before this thing came out, and they just showed it in the trailer, and Respawn just hasn't said anything. It's like, well, I guess we were right.
Yeah,
Uh,
bizarre. Maybe it could be one of those stealth leak. I feel like a lot of companies now like fake leak things. I think some of
yeah,
like, I think there you could tell when there's like a real leak and like a fake leak, because sometimes it's like, oh, we were not ready to show this, and like, okay, that's like rough. But then
yeah,
sometimes it's like, whoa, guys, look, this new indie game just leaked like some of the trailer, and it's like gets people to click on it and like be like, oh, whoa, like it
hmm,
drives attention.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, it
but
could
yeah,
have
I
just been
think
a
that apparently it
mistake.
was also leaked that they're releasing a reskin of like back in like 2020, like February 2020. There was a skin that they released for like an assault rifle. And it was so not only was it the coolest skin they've ever made for the gun, and the default gun is kind of ugly, but it was so unbelievably pay to win that everybody wanted it. And if you didn't play during that season, it literally has just never been available again.
Can you still use it in the game
Yeah,
now?
yeah, you
That's
can
so
still use it.
stupid.
Yeah, I have it, but like a bunch of my friends don't. They're like, hey, can you reskin my gun for me? Because when you pick up a gun, it'll have somebody else's skin on it, but you can set it to your skin, like in the menu. And so
Hmm.
they'll ask me to like reskin their gun for them so they can get the cool pay to win one.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but they're releasing a recolor, and the actual model hasn't been leaked, but like the colors, some people are talking about the colors, and apparently, from what I've heard, the colors sound pretty ugly. It's supposed to be like some like deep yellow and like white, and it's like okay,
Should have bought it when we could. Should have took. Should have been born 2 years ago. I don't know.
exactly. Should have bought the cooler one.
Should have bought the cooler one. I actually completely forgot. I don't know what jogged my memory, but I've been playing a little bit of Clone Hero, aka Guitar Hero, recently.
Hmm.
Still holds up. Fun game. It's wild. It seems like you can actually buy. So a big problem with these games is that all the plastic instruments, they're not making more of them, so they
Yeah.
become exceedingly expensive and scalpers and all that.
Hmm.
So it seems like on Amazon, I saw this when I was getting back into it. they are making Wii style and kind of the Xbox style controllers. Like a third party is making Guitar Hero controllers of
Hmm.
varying quality because like I assumed they would be kind of bad um based on them being like whatever, but it seems like, you know what, it's like the same price as like a old actual Wii one, for like a for real one.
Hmm.
And you can buy new ones and they seem okay. Like they seem passable apparently. I'm looking; they're currently not available. So I don't know what happened. They were available the other day when I looked.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if they ran out or if they're like now not like if they're now like reported or something. I don't know. But anyway, um, it seems like it has a potential to be maybe an okay solution because that is a rough thing about getting into Guitar Hero is like you can just not get the actual controller you need. And that used to be a rough
Hmm.
thing with Smash, like with GameCube controllers. That's a little bit better now too.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I
But
actually I remember a while ago I wanted to play Smash with some of my friends like Melee on Slippy, I think it was called.
yep. Hmm.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, I have a GameCube controller. I'll just use it." I plugged it in. I'm like, "Wait, this is like a 20-year-old GameCube controller." It just didn't work. I don't even think it was that we broke it particularly. It's just that it's been sitting like in my basement, covered in dust and stuff for like 12 years, give or take. So it's just
So
like everything was just weird.
so check this out. I just linked it. They're actually, and I bought a Japanese one, but it looks like the English one is also like regular price. They actually have an actual legitimate stock of
Ooh.
real GameCube controllers that aren't like the weird modified garbage ones. It's
Hmm.
just like an actual GameCube controller, and I'm sure there's some sort of
Nice.
snapback. I'm sure
That is
there
absurdly
is something.
expensive.
Not really. I mean, yeah, I guess for the
Really, for a
hardware.
GameCube controller? Like I was thinking like I thought it'd be like $20. This is $63.
Okay, I mean, yeah. Uh, to be fair, you are right. The actual components in it are, it could be like a $30, $40 controller.
I could get an Xbox 360 controller for $15.
But it's the fact that they're selling new ones, which they didn't for a while. It's the fact that they're actually selling new ones that you can still buy at the moment is
That's
very nice. I'm
that's such a
glad they're making them.
That's such a Nintendo classic. Oh my
Hey,
god.
yeah, you say that it's like oh, why are they selling for 60? It's because people were selling their used ones for like that much and they were garbage, because they weren't making more. So I'm glad they're at least making, like, that's the thing. I'll pay the money. Like if I could buy an official Guitar Hero controller and it costs like 60, $70, like what you're paying for like a used one, I would gladly pay a little bit more for a new one that works than just some random used one, because I've had
Hmm.
multiple controllers just break on me, like, because they're old and they have so many issues and stuff, especially Guitar Hero because they have like strumming issues and all that.
Yeah,
um
that
yeah,
actually that reminds me of the sriracha shortage
there's a
recently because
sriracha shortage.
yeah, so apparently they like this was a couple years ago. They just stopped making it because the people that they were getting the chilies from, apparently they tried to like scam them. Like
Huh.
the people who make the sauce scammed the people who they were getting the chilies from. So they just said, "Well, we're not going to give you these anymore." Like, what do you mean? And
Well,
I saw this post on Twitter, and it was like the guy made it very obvious this was taken like recently, and it was just nature is healing, and it was an entire section full of sriracha sauce. So I guess
I
they're
feel
making it again.
I feel like I haven't seen sriracha in that like iconic bottle
Yeah,
in a really long time. Now that I think about it,
yeah, yeah.
I think the sriracha trend was, sriracha's great.
Hmm.
I think the trend was really stupid when people were putting it on everything because I don't think it can go on everything. To be honest,
Yeah.
um,
And the reason why I found this post was because I was having a conversation with my friends. It's like, yeah, I just I like making sandwiches for lunch now. I get my bacon, lettuce. I don't really like tomatoes. Sometimes I'll put in some turkey or something. I'll get like a. I usually use like spicy mayo, and they were like, "Ew, why spicy mayo?" And it's like I don't like mayo, but I'm like I just need something of like that consistency in my sandwich. and they were like, "Why don't you just use like sriracha or something?" I'm like, sriracha doesn't exist anymore. Oh my god,
That's
you reminded me of my trauma.
that doesn't seem entirely correct. Also, why don't they could use like an well, I was gonna say like an aioli or something, but that's just mayo. That's fancy word for garlic mayo.
Yeah,
Um, or any some other kind of spread is it is kind of wild. They're like, I hate mayo, but I need the spread. I need some sort of spread, but it has to be mayo. It's bizarre. I'm a
uh,
big mayo fan. Well,
yeah. I mean, mayo's like it's not like I hate it. It's okay, but like
yeah.
I prefer spicy mayo just because it's like it's got a little more flavor.
I think mayo is slept on as like as a thing to dip fries in. But like,
Okay, that's okay. You're getting you're going off the edge now.
well, here's the deal.
That's psychotic behavior.
I wouldn't do that like because it's a gluttony. It's gluttonous. It's just fat on fat, right?
Yeah, that's
It
Jesus
is.
Christ.
But if you dip a little bit of mayo on a fry, it's pretty like you could only eat like one of these, right? This is that, and it's also sickening. Like you wouldn't want to eat more than one. It's decadent if you do
Dog,
one.
I feel like the more you describe this, the worse it sounds.
If you did one, it's decadent. Trust. Like, have you ever not dipped like a fry into like the mayo slash ketchup slash mustard residue of a burger?
Yes, but
That's good.
that's not just mayo though.
You can do a little like I'm saying though, it's not like every like you couldn't sit there like you're doing ketchup and do it for every fry. It's if you do one,
Yeah,
it's like oh this is kind of
but that's why
this
it's
is kind of nice.
psychotic. Who just wants to eat one fry?
No, no, I'm not saying like you could one use like before you put if you're putting mayo on a burger, put a little on a fry, eat the one fry, be like oh that was cool, and then put the rest on the burger. And honestly,
Yeah, but what do you do with the rest of the fries? Are you preparing two sauces for your fries?
no, you don't. That's why I'm saying like you squirt bottle of mayo, you squirt a little mayo
Yeah,
on one fry,
yeah, but
and
like
then put the mayo on the burger
why do you need the one mayo fry? Why not just like
to try it.
I feel like that's just weird.
I feel like if you tried it, well, the problem is if you don't like, I think you need to kind of like the taste of mayo too. Like if you're like,
I
it's
just
all
don't
right.
think mayo tastes like very much.
With the fry, it can be good, but I would say I'm not too fancy with the dipping sauces for
I'm a
fries or whatever.
I'm a big honey mustard enjoyer.
Honey mustard goes hard. Like
Yeah.
honestly, I think McDonald's weirdly has like pretty good honey mustard. I mean, I'm sure there's corn syrup and stuff, but I like the fact that it has like grain in it. Like it has like weird texture.
Yeah, so McDonald's honey mustard is good. I will agree. It's not my favorite. I think so. I found out about honey mustard because I went to Fuddruckers once and I saw like, oh my god,
Mhm.
the honey mustard machine. What is that? And I just put a
There's a
bunch on.
machine.
I just put like way too much on my burger, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing I ever had. And for the
Mhm.
longest time, I thought Fuddruckers was the only place on the planet that had honey mustard. And then I saw it at a store, and I'm like, oh my god.
Whoa, honey and mustard. You could have also combined the two. It kind of blew my mind that that's how kind of easy it is to make honey mustard in a way. You can just kind
Yeah,
of
because
combine the
it
two.
doesn't taste like mustard. Like it really doesn't.
Hmm.
But like
Um,
I know obviously it's called honey mustard, so I know there's mustard in there. I just didn't know it was like that primary of like a thing, I guess, or I just never associated it with mustard. Like I don't I don't know. It's like how you put mustard. It's like oh you put it on your hot dog, you put it on your burger. I don't think of it like that. I think of it like as a it's like a sauce. Like I never dip my fries in mustard. You know,
yeah,
honey
I feel like
mustard
that's
is
true.
different.
Yeah. I used to be I didn't like mustard as a child. I think mustard's a little harder of a sell for a kid.
Yeah.
Um, but as I've matured, mustard is clearly the superior kind of condiment in terms of you
Hmm.
could get a depth of flavor. Like you can get spicy brown mustard, you can get like a poupon, you can get like a what's it called? Like a what's that Grey Poupon mustard? It's like a style of mustard.
I think it's just called Grey Poupon.
That's the brand, but it's like a style, a Dijon, like a Dijon
I see what you
sort
mean.
of mustard.
Yeah.
Dijon mustard. Yeah,
Yeah, so my take on mustard, I think it always enhances the things that you put it on, but on its own, it's not very good.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah, like
I think
it complements
sparingly
like
too.
it complements meat really well. Like it complements that
Yeah,
flavor really well.
I think you do sparingly on the mustard unless you have like a sausage and you have some sort of like good brown mustard or something. Then you can like kind of
Yeah,
dunk it.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
too much mustard is always a bad thing in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think I've definitely come to like the harmony on like a burger. Sometimes I want just
Hmm.
ketchup mustard. Sometimes I'll just do ketchup. Like sometimes I have there's certain burger places where I will just get lettuce, mayo, and cheese on a burger, and that's like kind of an
Hmm.
interesting, different experience. But that's only a specific place
Yeah.
that does it well. I
Yeah,
usually
I know what you mean.
prefer. I usually just do like give me everything on it. Give me an everything, bro. Like put like onions on it. Put pickles. Put all the
Not a
all three
big.
sauces.
I'm not the biggest everything guy.
Just throw it all on there. But
I don't know why I'm
everything
a.
classic. I'm saying I'm not like I'm thinking onions, lettuce, tomato, pickles, mayo, ketchup, mustard, smash burger. Could be two patty. Could be regular. Bun.
Yeah, so I agree with all that except so onions are situational for me.
Mm.
Like I like
What
them.
about caramelized
I like
onions?
caramelized onions. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I like diced onions,
Oh, diced is good.
but I don't really like slivered ones or like the full onion very much. It's not even necessarily I don't like the taste. It just makes me feel like kind of sick after. So
Mm-hmm.
like I just can't really eat it. Um,
I can mess with the full ones, but I think
but
diced
yeah,
is the superior way
yeah,
to do it. Just
diced is
because,
good. Uh,
yeah,
Never been crazy about tomatoes. I'm just not really a tomato fan.
I,
Not an enjoyer of the mayo.
I like it on a burger. Like I think it adds a little something. I like it with it mixes with the ketchup, gives it a more tomatoey
Yeah.
flavor.
So my thing is, I know a lot of people like the tomato because it's like a little more like acidic for your burger.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is, so I like pickles and I also like jalapenos and stuff like that. So I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
get enough like acidity in my burger
That's
normally.
fair.
And I also like
Well,
I like hot sauce too and stuff like that. So it's just like yeah, I don't need the tomato. It's not necessary.
yeah, and with that, I think that's a pod. We'll call it a podcast. The Burger Time discussion podcast.
Yes,
If you have a question, you can send us an email at hyeppodcast@gmail.com. hyeppodcast@gmail.com. We'll
yes,
answer the question on the podcast, which we've done. We didn't really get to any questions this week, but I feel like when we don't get to questions, we kind of make our own questions,
yeah,
at the end because we end up talking about burgers and stuff. So we still
hmm,
got plenty off topic. But you
yes,
can find me, Matt, on Twitch and YouTube. I'm on Twitter too, but I don't use it. So I'm on Matt Fondude on Twitch and YouTube. That's pretty much where I hang out. And there's also a Discord if you want to join that for news and whatnot of like when I'll stream and who knows.
yes.
But who are you?
I'm James O 4 E. I cannot be found.